Welcome to the Guide to Wellness podcast. I'm Susanna, licensed acupuncturist. We're here to chat about health and well-being. Just a reminder, everything in this podcast is information only, not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. It's useful information to maintain a healthy life balance. Welcome to the Guide to Wellness podcast. Last winter, we released one of our most popular episodes, Breathing Easy. Now, myself, Susanna Freeman, and Jack Schwemm, our fabulous acupuncturist here at the clinic, is here with me today as we revisit this topic of breathing. Today, we're going to take a little deeper dive into some of the art and the science of breath, and ultimately how practicing breathing can improve your life. As always, since Jack and I are practitioners of traditional Chinese medicine and modern functional medicine, we're always trying to find new ways to integrate the old and the new, the east and the west, the yin and the yang. And when we think of breathing, our most basic life experience, we can think of the yin and the yang of breathing itself. And because we're currently in the metal season here in the Northern Rockies, it's November, it's the autumn season, this governs the lungs, and there's even more relevance with this topic with the lungs and air and breath. So let's all sit back right now. Please take a deep breath, breathe in, and breathe fully out. And let's simplify this basic life process. We use a breath of air to let go of the old CO2 and to bring in new oxygen. And then according to traditional Chinese medicine, we generate qi and blood in collaboration with the digestive system. We let go of the old, we make room for the new, and always retaining what is valuable and necessary for our health and well-being. And if you want to hear more about this, please check into our previous episode on the earth and the metal seasons. We go into a lot more detail on this whole topic. So right now, we want to talk about breathing. Today, our guided practice later in the episode will focus on how to build yang with the breath and how this in turn will support yin. And still, I want to take a moment to talk about the yin of breathing before we go on to the yang, because they are always cycling back and forth together. In my personal experience, I use that early morning time as a way to build yin as I begin the day. It's quiet, it's peaceful, it's still and reflective. I use this time to build awareness and find my center. It's my time for prayer and contemplation and reflection. I find that I can do this at night as well, and it spills over into the day. But for me personally, it seems to really help to do it when the sun is down or in those early morning hours before the world is up and awake. If you are one of those people that works at night or has more of a circadian rhythm that you're more awake at night, you can find any time of day to practice this breathing. Just find a time that's reflective for you, that's relaxing and calming, and not a time when you're being pulled in a million different directions. That seems to help a lot. So just to give you a little bit more relevance for why is this important, and one of the things that I've found in my 40 years of practicing traditional Chinese medicine and meditation and nutrition, I like to build yin into my daily meditation practice, and then that carries over into the rest of the day. But when I need to build yang, I turn to breathwork sessions. Now, breathing has lots of different techniques. We do it obviously every moment of our day, but we can be very specific and very intentional about how we're breathing. So breath work is a very specific set of techniques using breathing to influence the body and the health. And specifically, Jack's going to go into oxygenation, and we're going to talk about activating the vagus nerve and whatnot. What I find personally, all that is very academic. What I find is that breath work lets me move through stuck emotions and to get back into a place of joy. That's really why I do it, is for my quality of life as well as my health. Way back in massage school, we did breath work as part of our training. It was a game changer for me. And what I find is when we teach our patients in clinic about breath work and breathing, they too find that they love it, and it pretty immediately becomes a part of their daily lives. So I hear this boy, several times a week somebody says, wow, that really changed things for me and I love it, and they use it. So this is what we're offering to you. And a little plug for our podcast here and our clinic. Please, if you like what you're hearing, download this and share it around with whoever you think might enjoy listening to this podcast. All right, so Jack, I'm going to turn it over to you. I have a silly question for you. How long have you been breathing?
Well, I've been breathing since the day I was born, like most of us. But I was introduced to more serious breathing kind of patterns as, I don't know, a tween when I first learned meditation and some basic mantras and things. It didn't really capture my imagination till just a few years ago when I started doing some holotropic breathing. I read James Nestor's book Breath, which blew my mind. Somewhat recently, in the grand scheme of things, have I been breathing seriously.
We're playing with this concept of breathing. Obviously, we all do it every day, every moment of our lives, and we're talking now about how to be intentional with it. So one of the concepts that is being brought up a lot in the breathwork land is chronic overbreathing. Can you chat about that, Jack, with us?
Yeah, so in Breath, the book that I just mentioned, and elsewhere in kind of the breathwork community, there's a growing idea that most people are breathing too fast. If you are breathing more than 10 breaths a minute, people in this community would consider that chronic overbreathing.
Can I just jump in here? If we're talking about basic first aid and medical science, it's more 12 to 20.
For sure.
Right? Per minute.
Quick health disclaimer before we get into that. If you have a heart condition, glaucoma, detached retina, recent surgery, if you're pregnant, be very cautious with these more yang-style breathwork things because they can cause changes in heart rate, blood chemistry, as I'll get into, blood pressure, various things. And also these kinds of breathwork patterns can cause emotional releases and other kind of uncomfortable things in the mind and body. So if you're new to breathwork and just listening to this, maybe get a group together or find a trained facilitator to start you on your breathwork journey.
And also just do it in the calm of your home and start slow and start easy and don't make it a big deal.
Indeed.
Jack, what do you mean by overbreathing? You defined it a little bit, but it's not hyperventilation. What is overbreathing?
In some contexts, the term overbreathing and hyperventilation mean the same thing. In the breathwork community, all breathing rapidly is overbreathing, only some of that is hyperventilation. Backing up to the normal range of breath rate, if you look at a medical textbook, 12 to 20 breaths per minute is considered normal. And most people end up in this range. But the most recent research is showing that people in that range, especially people on the high end of that range, have decreased ability to perform athletically and a higher rate of anxiety.
Okay.
So that's what's being considered chronic overbreathing. In conjunction with this research, we have a different range of 5 to 10 breaths per minute, which might feel kind of slow if you're used to breathing up in that 18, 19, 20 breaths per minute range.
Do you have any recommendations for us before we do a guided practice in a few minutes on if you're feeling like, oh my gosh, I really want to take a breath, this feels wrong? I know I feel that way sometimes. It gets a little stressful. What do you recommend from your experience, Jack, on what to do when your body's telling you it should be breathing more?
Take a breath.
And if you feel like maybe you have the capacity to hold out a little bit longer, what would you say? Just relax into it?
It totally depends on the practice you're doing. There are definitely times and places to push, and we'll get into that with some of these recommendations. And there are times where it's not productive to make yourself more uncomfortable for a practice to... You're not doing yourself service. The first rule in Qigong, as I've been taught it, is if it hurts, don't do it.
Nice. Well said. Okay, so you always have permission to just relax and take a normal breath and then get back into it.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay.
There's always another breath.
Jack, we all know this concept of overeating, right? And how it's not good for our health. And it almost seems like there's a way that you could take that concept that we all understand and tie it into breathing. Why would we overbreathe? Because when we eat, food tastes good, right? So air feels good. It feels good to breathe. So, gee, why don't we do more of it?
The growing understanding of CO2 is kind of why we, one, think that it might be beneficial to breathe a little slower, and two, is how we get triggered to breathe more often. For a long time, we've known that CO2 helps regulate and, to some degree, causes the acid-base balance in the blood. What we're now learning is that the level of CO2 in the blood actually helps oxygen uptake in the tissue.
Interesting. Tell us more about that.
So it's called the Bohr effect, and I won't bore you with the details. But briefly, it's about the stickiness of hemoglobin in different acid and base realms. So when the red blood cell, or RBC, becomes more acidic, they release more oxygen. So when there's more CO2, there's oxygen coming out into the tissues
Interesting.
to be used. When they become more alkaline, the oxygen gets sucked up into the red blood cell. So in the lungs, when you exhale that CO2, then it makes space for the oxygen to enter, even though they're not binding to the same protein or anything. But
Interesting. The wisdom of the body and the buffering systems that we have that we don't even know that we're doing all day long.
indeed. So the brain is measuring the acidity of the blood to tell you, breathe now. Breathe
Cool.
now. And this is hugely important, obviously. We need to be breathing. But if that is triggering too often for you to take those breaths, whether it's because you're doing cardio or because you're anxious, it will build more of that anxiety. You'll feel more out of breath.
Interesting.
And that can even come up to the point of causing a panic attack, hyperventilation, whatnot.
Interesting, right? So the best thing to do when we're feeling anxious is to notice if we're holding our breath or not.
Or overbreathing.
Yes, right. As I often ask my patients in clinic is if they're having a moment of stress for whatever reason in their lives, just I'll use the one word, exhale.
Yep.
That seems to work.
Yeah. It clears some of that CO2, gets people calmer.
Okay.
Over the long term, however, we can work with this system by raising the threshold that your brain and blood want that exhale, want
Cool.
that inhale.
Nice.
And
Wait, want the inhale or want the exhale?
yes, want the process to continue.
There.
Because
Good.
as we'll talk about in a minute, it's measuring a ratio more than it's measuring just CO2. Like CO2 is the receptor site, but how that receptor gets triggered is based on the oxygen CO2 ratio.
Yes. Gotcha. Okay. Good.
How we measure where our mind and body is at with this is called a BOLT score, or a blood oxygen level test. It's really simple. We can do it right now with everyone listening.
Cool.
But it's really important that you are gentle and honest with yourself, because we want to get a good reading. And there's no one, you're not accountable to anyone but yourself doing a BOLT score.
And this may change depending on your stress level at the moment, correct?
Certainly.
Yeah.
And
so maybe do it a few times.
what you're doing, how long
Right.
you've been awake,
Right.
all sorts of things can tweak this a little bit, but it will be reasonably consistent.
So how do we do it, Jack?
So you're going to take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. Set a timer, just a little stopwatch, and hold at the bottom. And you're
Hold
going
at the bottom.
hold at the bottom of your breath,
Yes.
with your lungs completely empty, or as close as you can get. And let the timer run until you get the first really clear, hey, we'd like to breathe now, from your body. And then you stop the timer and take a breath in, and you look at your score.
Let's do that right now. Everybody if you're in a good place. We're going to do a little ding when to begin, and we'll tell you when you're at 10 seconds and 12 seconds. Okay? So everybody breathe out. Ding. Five seconds. 10 seconds. 12 seconds. Ding.
So if you didn't last that long,
No worries.
that's all right. Most people, when they're first doing it, end up in less than 12 seconds, which is why most people are in that 12 to 20 breaths per minute. The original research of this showed dramatic increases in cardiovascular endurance and decreases in perceived effort with exercise as people increased their Bolt score.
Cool. Sounds pretty awesome. How do we do it?
We're going to do exactly what I just told you not to do and do the same thing, in through the nose, out through the mouth, and then hold it, not until that first threshold of I would really like to breathe now, but absolutely as long as you can until you are gasping to get air back in. And the original research did it with 3 sets of 5 holds. So throughout a day, say right when you wake up, you do 5 of those holds. Deep breath in, deep breath out, hold, deep breath in, deep breath out,
Question.
hold.
How long do you pause and breathe normally in between each of those little mini sessions?
As I've been doing this, I didn't see that super clearly in the original research.
Mhm.
I think they were doing just 1 breath in between,
Okay.
and that's how I've been doing it.
Okay.
Every once in a while, after the 3rd or 4th one, you're just
Uh-huh.
like, I need
Right.
more, and you can
And
take
you
a couple breaths.
Take more. Good. Perfect. Okay.
Yeah,
So then we're not necessarily going to do this right now on the podcast, but we're going to encourage people to do it at home. And
Certainly.
this is how you're going to train.
yeah, and it isn't super fast. I haven't done it super diligently 3 times a day, but I've been doing at least once a day and often twice a day for the past 4 months, and I've gotten mine from a 10 to a 16 on a really honest Bolt score.
Awesome, Jack. Way to go.
Well, I've got a ways to go before
You can
the
be proud
25.
of that. And I have certainly noticed in working with you over this past year that you just more and more grounded and more present and available, and your work is growing in like leaps and bounds, and it's really fun to watch.
I'm glad.
Yay. Well, so this sounds hard, but maybe also completely doable. What else can we do to stretch our breathing comfort zone?
So, like I said, it's a ratio more than it is a single value. One of the most popular breathwork patterns today is the one popularized by Wim Hof. It has 3 distinct phases. Each one pushes your comfort zone in a different direction.
Mm-hmm.
So the first phase, where you are doing a very targeted overbreathing, so rather than the hyperventilation breathing at the top of your lung, you're getting very deep breaths, but very rapid. And that causes you to have high O2, low CO2. Then the next phase is just like that Bolt score training, is you let all that out and wait. And then you take a breath in, a breath out, a breath in, and hold at the top. And that gives you a high O2 and high CO2 range to sit at. And you hold that as long as you are comfortable. If you're doing this and you've done your Bolt score, you may be surprised. I was certainly surprised when I first did this. And the holding at the bottom after the overbreathing phase is so much easier than it is when you're just, say, waking up like I do every morning and try to hold my breath.
Cool.
Over a minute, 2 minutes sometimes after that hyperoxygenated phase, dropping into the hyper CO2 phase. Really neat.
So as in all things in life, practice makes it work.
Indeed.
Cool.
As Wim Hof does this, he says 40 rapid breaths, 1 hold at the bottom, 1 hold at the top, and then do that 3 to 5 times. but there's infinite variations. Play with it, see what works, have some fun.
Nice.
So I've been nerding out about the blood gas ratios, but before we started, we were talking, and Susanna mentioned the vagus nerve and its relation to breath work. You want to tell us more about that? Because that's something that I'm not as nerdy about.
Surely. I love to nerd out on the vagus nerve, so we're a good team here. And just a reminder, as long as humans have been around walking the planet, we've been playing with these techniques. So this is just our current incarnation, if you will, of the vagus nerve and breathing. And it's pretty cool to, like we said earlier, to blend the old and the new, Chinese and Asian and Middle Eastern, and every tradition has something to say about breathing in the vagus nerve. In my clinical experience and in training, I'm really interested in regulating and activating the vagus nerve simply because we see people every single day, most of our patients, in some version of stress, fight or flight, sympathetic dominance, in which the parasympathetic nervous system is not functioning as well as it could. So basic primer here in the nervous system, we have the autonomic nervous system, which is our unconscious, is regulated by the unconscious mind. And then we have the nervous system that is regulated by the conscious mind. So you reach over to pick up a pen to write a note or have a sip of water while you're listening to us, and that is a conscious motion, but it's also using unconscious signals from the brain. The parasympathetic nervous system so the nervous system is divided. The autonomic nervous system has then the parasympathetic, which is the rest and repair and restore aspect of the nervous system. When you're sleeping, when you're building red blood cells, when you're oxygenating, when you're digesting your food, when you're repairing that sprained ankle, whatever it is you need to recharge, that is the parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic is what helps us respond to stress. It's our fight or flight system, and that is the system that keeps us out of trouble, keeps us awake and alive, keeps us functioning in the world. We need to do both. So the vagus nerve is one of the 10 cranial nerves. 11? I've forgotten. I think of them individually. Anyway, we have many, many cranial nerves that are part of the autonomic nervous system. The vagus nerve is the one that connects, we think, the mind and the body, and has to do with how we regulate ourselves physically based on our emotion, our mood, our state of fight or flight versus rest and repair. So some examples of this are like if a kid in school gets a tummy ache because they're nervous about an upcoming test or something happening on the playground, that's being transmitted through the vagus nerve. Or that expression, butterflies in the stomach, right? That's a vagus nerve response. That's meaning the emotional information is being signaled down through the vagus nerve into the stomach. So irritable bowel syndrome is often has a relationship with the vagus nerve, and if we can activate the vagus nerve, we can improve the symptoms of irritable bowel and that increased spasticity. So lots and lots of very specific medical applications of reasons why we would want to improve tone in the vagus nerve. And another little side note, if you want to chat with us in clinic about this, the bacteria in your gut have a very specific relationship with how these signals through the nervous system, especially the vagus nerve, travel up into the brain and influence our neurotransmitters and our brain chemistry and our mood. It's pretty cool stuff, the whole gut-brain connection. We've been talking about it for many, many hundreds of years in traditional Chinese medicine, and now there's more research happening. It's really, really exciting. So we regularly talk to people about, well, which probiotics do you need to be taking and which foods should you be eating in order to influence your brain chemistry and your neurotransmitters based on your particular imbalances in your gut. Super, super nerdy, fun stuff. So that is the basic concept with the vagus nerve. It's not the only cranial nerve we want to be talking about, but it's the one for this discussion today. You want to increase tone in the vagus nerve in order to feel more regulated, more centered, more grounded, more responsive in the world with how you are engaging with your day and those people around you, how you're communicating, and how quickly or easily you are moving from a state of stress into a state of flow, if you don't mind me using a cliche word. The flow state can be super important, and I find that breathing is one of the best ways to return to a flow state.
For sure.
All right. So here's what we're going to do. You all can ask us questions later through our clinic if you have more questions about vagus nerve or any of this. In the meantime, we're going to do a little bit of practice. So if you are driving or doing something that you're standing and running or whatever, you might want to just pause, pull over to the side of the road, listen to this later, find a park bench, sit down, get comfortable. We do want you sitting. We're going to do 2 guided practices. One is the beginner box breathing that you may have heard about already. We talked about this last February on our podcast episode. And then we're going to move into one thing we call triangle breathing. It's simply our our version of box breathing that allows us to activate the vagus nerve and to include some of this research and practice that Jack was just talking us through about how to increase oxygenation in the cells and improve our athletic performance and improve our flow state. So everybody get comfortable, and we're going to start with some box breathing. I'm just going to talk you through it. So just listen to my voice, and everybody start with a deep exhale. Exhale all your breath out so we're all on the same page. So exhale fully now, and listen to my voice and follow along as best you can. If you ever need to stop and take a normal breath, go ahead and do. So I was talking a little longer. Let's everybody exhale now. Breathe in to the count of 4. 3, 2, 1. Hold your breath in with a full inhale. 3, 2, 1. Now exhale. 3, 2, 1. And hold your breath out, pulling your belly button into your spine. 3, 2, 1. Inhale. 3, 2, 1. Hold your inhale at the top. 3, 2, 1. Exhale. 3, 2, 1. Hold that exhale out. Pull your belly button into your spine. 2, 1. Breathe normally. Very good. You all are such good students. This may feel easy. This may feel challenging. Either way is fine. So the reason why I'm talking about pulling your belly button into your spine is because when you do that, you are engaging the muscles of the abdomen to activate the diaphragm muscle, and therefore you are, since the vagus nerve is traveling through the diaphragm and all that fascia in the rib cage and into these organs in the abdomen, you are increasing tone in the vagus nerve as you actively use that diaphragmatic breathing. So when you're doing it on the exhale, you are in particular engaging that vagus nerve. So pull your belly button into the spine. That allows the diaphragmatic breathing to happen. That allows you to increase the vagus nerve tone. Anything to add there, Jack, before we move on?
I don't think so.
Okay, we are good. So everybody just take a couple normal breaths. Get yourself ready. Now we're going to move into what we here at the clinic call triangle breathing. And y'all know that once you get in the flow of this, your breathing will be circular, right? You're not going to have to think about a shape. It's just that in order to teach the box breathing and the triangle breathing, we're talking about the number of seconds or the number of counts that you're going to either inhale or hold or exhale your breath. And it's very strategic. So the box breathing is equal counts inhale, hold, exhale, hold. Triangle is talking about this idea that if we're over breathing, we need to focus more on the exhale. And so this is going to be an inhale and a little hold at the top, and then a long, long, long exhale and a long hold at the bottom. So therefore you have a triangle shape, sort of. It's I don't even know what to call that. Even the exhale portion is longer even than the inhale. You'll get the idea very quickly. Here we go.
One note
everybody.
on counts.
Yes, please.
When I'm practicing not in a group, like in a group, it's very nice to have someone counting. But when I'm practicing on my own, I use my heartbeat as counts.
Nice. Beautiful. Love it. Okay. All right. So everybody take a full breath out. I'm going to lead you through this. You're going to inhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold 1. Exhale 4, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold at the bottom, pulling your belly button into your spine. 3, 2, 1. Inhale. 3, 2, 1. Hold. 1. Exhale. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold that exhale. 3, 2, 1. Inhale. 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold. 1. Exhale. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold. 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale freely. Well done, everybody. You can be proud for that effort that you just put in, and possibly the lightness and the joy that is going to come forward in your day because of this. Please, please practice this. Let us know if you have questions. And back to you, Jack. Tell us a little bit more about why this is so important to you.
I think breathwork is fascinating to me because there's so many ways to do it and so many subtle variations. It's something that everybody is doing all the time, but it's so nice to be able to do it well, whether you are trying to increase your athletic performance or reduce stress, live longer, balance better, sleep better, focus better. There are breathing exercises that can help you do that, and it's a neat world to dive into. So I would recommend anyone who's interested, look it up, see what there is out there. Wim Hof, of course, has a YouTube and an app. That's a decent place to start. But there's all sorts of things on the internet.
I know that there's the practice that I use quite a bit is the Buddhist insight tradition, or Vipassana, also called mindfulness, where they're using the breathing to anchor your mind, give your mind something to do so it doesn't wander off quite so freely. That's more the yin style, I would say, of breathing, right?
Certainly.
Where you just counting your breaths and you're noticing inhale, exhale, in, out, and you count to 10. And if you're like most of us, you'll wander off around 4 or 5, and then you start back at 1, right? And on a really good day, you might get to 10. But the point is, you're giving your mind something to do while you're relaxing your body with the breathing. Any other resources for you, Jack? What do you think?
I like Othership. It's another app. The free version does time out, so take advantage of the free version while you have it, and then, make whatever decision you want. They are not sponsors. Wim Hof is not a sponsor. Just things to explore.
Yeah, we just like to give people resources and things they can do on their own. So we trust you all have a heightened awareness now of your breath and your body, and that you'll use these tools in your daily life. As always, if you want to learn more, would like individualized coaching or healthcare with us, please contact us. It's greatturninghealing.com. Our phone number here in Montana is 406-599-0088. You can also find us on social media at Great Turning Healing. Until next time, take a deep breath, enjoy life. Bye now.
Have a good one.